can be one of those crazy characters between now and September 17th, after which, and during that time, there are about 10 advisors that we've been working with. Dan was one of them in the last contest, who will be on the site asking questions, poking. All of you can do that too on the proposals. After the 17th, we're going to turn off the ability to edit the functions. We'll keep the commenting going, and we'll work with those 10 advisors. We'll look at the comments that have come up and select a smaller number that we'll take to a final evaluation round, and then go into a due diligence process with the set of finalists. The upshot is that we'll take a recommended set of winners to the night trustees in early December and announce the winners at an event TBD in mid or early January. So I'll stop there, and I'd love to hear either any questions you have about the process, anything you want to push back on what you heard Dan say, and just generally what you guys are working on. And I'm going to sit down and facilitate that.
So I'm Bruce Lambert from Northwestern University. I'm an academic research scientist. So 11 days doesn't seem like a very long time to put together a proposal for this. So it's very unconventional, different from the sort of proposal I'm accustomed to making. So,
yep.
Can you say a bit more about this process and how fully formed? Also, this idea of collaboratively generating the ideas seems a little unusual, especially because those of us who think we have good ideas kind of keep those ideas to ourselves until we get money for them, people like you. So if I have a very good idea, how is that collaboratively constructed? I'm just not following this process.
Yep. So I'll say one of the things we've learned over the years of funding projects like Every Block and 99 other projects is that the ones that are derived from actual human needs and opportunities and desires tend to be the most likely to success, right? There's a greater correlation for success if it's based on some degree of human observation and behavior. And included in that is the ability, one. Two, we're not looking, part of the whole aspect of the Night News Challenge was we don't know, right? We don't know. We're not the experts here. Particularly true in health data. So this is not this is not a federal grant program where we're getting together 12 experts and we're going to sit around a table and we're going to select the 12 winners. We want comments, eyeballs from the world, from the community to be part of it. Second is generally, historically over the last couple of years, we're able to fund about 1% of the proposals that come through. We realized, eventually we realized that, wow, that 99%, there's a lot of value in those other ideas as they're coming through. And rather than chucking them overboard, and we might try to fund a couple on the side through different mechanisms, let's maximize the opportunity for those ideas to be heard and seen and for others to build off of. And we've begun to see, now that we have a new platform that we built with IDEO, we've begun to see more and more of that. One example of that is we did a virtual meeting, sort of like this, with about the same number of people during the previous contest to talk about ideas and just to answer questions like this. And the last 20 minutes, no one from my staff spoke, right? It was people within the call talking about their ideas, feeding off one another, and that's what we're trying to engender more of. And we find that the open aspect of that is key. And the iterative...
There's $2 million at stake. Why would I share my best idea that someone else might build on and get it funded? That's the part I'm not understanding. So how do you secure the rights to your own ideas in an open forum like that so that you get credit for them when the funding decision is made, or when you make this first cut for a fuller proposal?
I'm going to ask Dan to talk about openness and why, because he had that in his slide. I'll say two things about that. I mean, one is, as a funder tasked with making society better, we think open ideas shared generally result in better projects and are better for society. We've built in a fail-safe for people for various IP reasons or career reasons that don't want to share an idea. So, for instance, if Dan has an idea and he doesn't want Terry Mazzani to know that he's thinking of leaving, Dan can email that to us. And so we have an email box set up on the site where people can email the ideas. In terms of credit, I mean, I think one of the things we've begun to see with this platform in the previous iteration is people like your idea exists as a unique URL that you now can point to, others can come back to. So if you do post an idea and then I come and build off of it, you know, your post is up there and we can look at it. And that's frankly what we're trying to engender. I would love it if, you know, someone posts an idea and then someone comes off and builds off that and makes it a better idea. Do you want to talk about this kind
well,
of
there's the
what open
esoteric.
means?
Yeah, and there's, I think your question is like, well then, who do you give the money to?
Yeah.
When you submit the idea, your name will be on the check. So just because other people come and make comments on the idea and say, that's terrible, or this is a really good idea, but I have this other idea, and you incorporate that idea, nobody's writing a check to that person who made a comment on your page, right? So from a practical point of view, there's no concern. From a more esoteric point of view, I think John has said, ideas that stand up to scrutiny are better ideas. And ideas that include more people, whenever you're trying to serve people, especially in the context of community health, which is certainly everybody, as we described, they'll be better. That's the theory.
And the fail-safe is email. And we treat those applications exactly the same. We give them the same review.
What's your internal image of the successful candidates who gets the check? Is it a corporation? Is it a community group? Is it a nerd group? Is it a whatever? What's your profile in your head? Who's the most likely type
Yes.
of candidate?
Yes. Part of the if I knew what the answer, if we had that in mind, instead of doing an open challenge, we'd create an RFP and articulate that we're looking for, you know, educational, you know, implementations within K-12 environments that affect child obesity using mobile phones. But we don't know what we want.
It's not gonna. What you've funded so far? What have been the kind?
We've funded things ranging from a 17-year-old high school student who was hacking in his mom's basement and then later went on to MIT and working for the Boston Globe, up to collaborations between the Washington Post and the New York Times, up to pure startups like Outline.com, which was a startup that we just funded through the most recent contest, like Everyblock. So we have different funding mechanisms. We can fund for-profits, we can fund nonprofits, we can fund individuals. You know, they're complicated, but we look for the best projects with the highest likelihood of success.
Last question.
Yeah.
You mentioned human needs. Do you have some kind of a definition of what you mean by that?
So we just convened about 50 of our previous News Challenge winners for a 2-day session at Stanford to talk through, and the loose theme we talked about was thinking as a product, right? That rather than thinking of technology or just an idea, that the projects that we see having the greatest impact are those that think and act like a product. In other words, are trying to address a particular need or opportunity that they've observed from a particular population. And those characteristics are things that we look at in the proposal, right? I mean, if in the comment phase, if I come in and ask Matt, so who is this for? And he says, everyone. That's usually a red flag that either he hasn't thought through the implications of it fully, or he hasn't really kind of observed an opportunity or what the need is or what the problem he is trying to address. So by human need, I guess we either mean a desire, a problem, an opportunity, something tangible that we can get our heads around over the course of reading hundreds of these proposals and feel confident that, one, you know of the community of which you speak, and two, that you've identified a problem that's tangible, realistic, and serviceable by your idea.
Are you looking for technology sponsors or partners to have technology that can accelerate some of these great ideas, not necessarily domain experts in healthcare or not necessarily working on problems in the space, but have technology can speed up a lot of these things?
Define what you mean by sponsors.
People that are willing to contribute technology for other people to leverage across their big data sets or
Sure.
other things they're trying to do to
Yeah, I mean,
give
one
them
thing,
more tools to work with to extract insights, financiers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, so one observation we've also had about successful projects is those that have the broadest, most diverse set of teams, even if it's within one person, are more likely to have success. In other words, if you're proposing building something and you have no technological expertise on your team, you're less likely probably to succeed and build that than if you have that person, right? And we've seen, teams that have combinations of design expertise, technology, and field expertise about the issue they're working on, and someone who wakes up in the morning thinking about the business aspect of the project. That all can be in one person, or it all can be in 18 people.
Yeah, I meant more team agnostic, basically saying we've got a shiny new engine that does this, this, and this. We let any team use it for the betterment of the cause.
Well, I mean, as long as it answers the question of harnessing data and information to lead to healthy communities, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But having a defined population is helpful. And one of the opportunities with the platform and the 11 days left in the platform is to get that up there, even if you don't have a community, it gives you an opportunity to articulate a tool and find others and work with them. That's one of the things we've begun to see on the platform over the last couple contests. Matt?
How important, I mean, there are any number of ways you can use community data, health data to create better communities and help people with their healthcare. How important is the news and journalism component of that in the challenge?
So we define news for the News Challenge very broadly. To some perceive it as very broadly. I don't think community health data and information. I don't think that's too far outside of news. That feels like what's news is information and data that helps you figure out how to live your life where you are at that moment. So again, I think as long as it's focused on the question of health data and information for communities, whether or not you've spent your career in a newsroom or not or have a strong, you're talking about journalism with a capital J, is less relevant than if you're addressing those questions. So we're more interested in the value of the idea, the likelihood of success, than does it fit in with on some conception of journalism. Hi, Jill.
Hey, my question really relates to your question a little bit earlier. In reviewing all of these submissions, do you ever think, wow, what would the catalyst be like to put this team and this team together?
Sure, we think about that a lot, and when we do that, that never works. Right? Every time, and almost every contest we try to do something like that. I don't know if anyone else has seen, especially from the funder, forced marriages is not, we're not that smart, right? And so just the same as if I come to you and like, Jill, I've got a great idea for you to do. You should do this. Generally does not correlate with successful projects we've seen. That's not to say that, I mean, hopefully through this process, if conversations happen through events like this, we try to spark things, and when we see opportunities, we facilitate. But we certainly, again, it's a temptation we often have, and it never works, or rarely works. Hi.
Hi. So how about timeline for delivering a project?
Yeah.
That'll determine scope. Does it have to be a year?
It's open, right? I would say generally the projects that we fund, so $2.2 million, right, for health data is not a lot of money. We're probably going to fund, I mean, if prior, what's the term people say about, what's the SEC kind of tagline people on, like prior history is no guarantee of future success or whatever. So with the caveat that we've never done a health data challenge with 4 other philanthropic partners before. The previous challenges we tend to fund between 6 to 10 projects, We tend to fund them. The median range is probably within the $250,000, $300,000 range. Some of them are lower than that. Some of them are more than that. And for the types of projects tend to rise to the top, that timeline tends to be somewhere within a 6 to 18 month timeline.
Yeah, and how is this based on the idea itself versus like implementation? Just, I mean, I'm also a bit of an academic. We don't do a great job of making flashy videos, so we're not going to have a lot of flash. Shooting that in 11 days, it takes pros. Maybe not even all rip pros, but
Yep.
I mean, it's so that's okay.
It is. I would say that, as the video said, having an image is helpful, even if that image is a cell phone photo of a cocktail napkin sketch that you did. Right. That is a very helpful tool for us to review. I should also say that it's about an 8 or a 9 stage review process. Right. So the key is that you don't have to have everything written in concrete, finalized, and in triplicate for us by September 17th. You need to have a serviceable idea that's articulated in a way that we can understand it, we being everyone. And then we have several layers of due diligence that come through that. I'll also say that it's never written in stone, right? When we have check-ins on a quarterly basis with our projects, one of the questions we always look for is, okay, what have you changed? And if my biggest worry is if I check in with you and a year after we funded you, doing the exact same thing you had proposed to me a year and a half ago or a year ago, that's usually a red flag that you're not learning and listening. So we're pretty adaptive and iterative in how we work with the ideas all the way up through the projects.
Yeah, I got to run.
I don't know. So just so my email is bracken@knightfoundation.org. I think it might be on the invitation you got. My Twitter is JSB, and my phone is 773-451-8169. If you have any questions, you can hit me up at any of those places. We're also doing a kind of a virtual office hours Q&A on Tuesday at noon, which if you go to newschallenge.org, you'll see the link, or if you check out the Knight Foundation Twitter stream that on Tuesday at noon, you'll see the link to that. So if you have other questions.
John, do you guys have any sense of the balance you're going to be looking for in terms of geographically of projects that are national or global or regional or even quite local?
We're agnostic on geography. One of the things I've learned through events like this, through this tour, is just the value about thinking about health from a local perspective. Seems huge. Maybe that's because we're doing locally based conversations like this. But in terms of scale, there's also lots of opportunities with federal-based data and lots of energy at the federal level and in different international projects. But we're agnostic. You can imagine a small project focused on the one block, or a national project, or something at a countrywide level. Hi.
How are you about the government entity entering this contest and assigning the money that you won to another partner? Because
we're very flexible. Having worked with 2 other major foundations, we've really worked hard to craft flexible funding instruments to allow anyone with an idea to work with you. So whether it's we have an intermediary that we work with often, the Miami Foundation, which is a way for us to work with people who don't have a 501c3. But we can also, in some instances, work with government. So those are all things that when we get to the final stages, that's when we start to try to work that out. So we're open to that, and I'm happy to tell you more offline. Please.
John, when I would submit a proposal, I normally think of having a detailed project plan with research questions and measurements, objectives, and timeline, personnel, and budget. how much of that are you expecting in this stuff?
At this stage, we're not expecting all of that. If you have all that and you want to, if you have all that and you want to share it, that's awesome. What we'll do is we'll ask you all that when we get to the final stages. If you make it to the final 50 or so, that's when we'll come and start collecting all that.
So this
What
is
we
really
really,
the letter of intent stage, and then you're going to ask for
you sound like a foundation person. You're stealing my lines. This is really a way to articulate an answer to the question that we're throwing out, and kind of in a concise way that allows people to understand what you're proposing, and with a realization that we'll talk more about it and get into the details and figure out budget questions at that point. We've designed it specifically for it to take you 20 or 30 minutes to fill it out.
How many do you think you'll fund?
I really don't know. I mean, purely only based on previous iterations, which again, I'm hesitant to really think about. We funded, in the last round, where we gave away a little more than $3 million, we funded 6 projects. One prior to that, we funded 10. So it could be in that range. Michelle, did you have a question?
What if our solution isn't technical, but helping people get over technical barriers? Is that count, or does it have to be a technical solution?
Tell me more. I mean, the answer is probably yes, but tell me more what you mean.
Well, we've used models before in helping people get over technology barriers, especially people that are on the other side of the digital divide. And we were looking at maybe taking our solution that we've used for education and helping students become more familiar with technology to help them with their homework. And also helping people apply for jobs. We've used things to help kind of scale things down so people applying for jobs online becomes more doable for people who aren't used to that experience. We're thinking about doing that same thing now with the Affordable Care Act, Healthcare Act, of helping people actually navigate that who actually are not very digital savvy. And so I'm curious if something like that, where we need to train people to actually help them not only just learn more about healthcare, but also build up their digital literacy skills at the same time, and put those two things together to increase somebody's digital and healthcare literacy overall. Would that be something that's doable in this type of case, or is that not, because it's not a true technology?
If it's about how you can use data information to improve the health of communities, and that sounds like that's what that is, then that definitely fits within the spirit of what we're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Partly because of our ignorance and rookie status in this space, we're trying to cast as broad a net as possible. And again, the focus is on the health of communities. And if you're translating or providing or delivering data and information to people, which it sounds like that's what you're describing.
Right. We're trying to break down the digital barriers
totally
to accessing the information that's available.
Yep. The one thing I just want to go back to too is, in addition to this fund, one of the things that we've built, because there are a lot of good ideas that were at smaller scales, is what we call a prototype fund. It's at prototypefund.org, and we've actually prototyped the prototype fund over the last year, and we're revising it. It's so it's for ideas that we want to help test. The notion was, it's a lot of these ideas. It's easier if we just say we're going to fund it, test it, find out, let it either work or not work quickly, and then go from there, rather than go through a whole process. So prototypefund.org is an opportunity. We will divert some applications into that, and it's also just open 365 days a year. It involves a $35,000 award. It involves a trip to Pittsburgh for a human-centered design process, which I can tell you more about offline. And it involves a 90-day window to build your prototype, and then a demo day in front of your colleagues that you were trained with. And so that's something that you'll be hearing a lot more about, hopefully, even after the News Challenge.
So do you want a specific dollar amount at this point in the stage?
Yes, if you have it, that's great. We also realize that once we get down to brass tacks and start talking to you in detail about it, and we realize that, over the 2 weeks from when you press send to the time we come and talk to you, or the 2 or 3 weeks, that you're going to be receiving more information, you're going to be receiving comments on your site, that you're going to revise that upwards and downwards, and when we get really to brass tacks into the final rounds of negotiating amounts, then that's when we earn our money and have to figure out how to parcel out the exact number of funds. So If you have, yes, I mean, so if you have a budget in mind and you can upload it, that's fabulous. If you don't and you have a rough number, that's fine too. And if you don't have a number, we'll come back and talk to you about it when we get there. I will say that, the more detail and specificity you're able to provide all of us reading the proposals, the better in one sense. But that's not, there are plenty of times when we've funded things and it's been a conversation over a period of the different stages.
John, at this point, what percentage of applicants are opting for a private email proposal versus going public? And also, I was wondering if you have any top-of-mind examples of ways that specific proposals were improved by the open process, where other people jumped in and said, great idea, but it would be better if you did this or that.
Yeah. So in this contest, I'm not sure, which just started Tuesday, I don't think we've gotten any private submissions. The ratio tends to be, I don't know, 10 to 1 or maybe even 20 to 1, public over private. The private ones tend to be rare. Again, they tend to be either people who have defined IP that they don't want to share, or people in just kind of a career place where they don't want to signal that they're leaving. So we've had a couple of those come through. I'm trying to think of an example. I think all of them probably took in a lot of feedback. I'm thinking of the most recent set of winners, which included LISC Chicago. I certainly think they modified their proposal based on comments they got from the readers like Dan that we brought on board and the community. And I know that Procure.io, which is a project that Clay Johnson, who's kind of like Dan, an early pioneer in this space, that he received, and he refined his project based on conversations that he was having with people online. And we saw other people kind of come together and kind of bring together their two proposals together. We actually funded a project 2 or 3 years ago called People TV, which was a collaboration that came out as a part of people having conversations with each other, not on the News Challenge platform, but in another night event, and they each had separate ideas.
So kind of a follow-up to that. So as a practical question regarding deadlines, so I posted a proposal tonight. The deadline is, I forget, the 7th?
The 17th.
So
don't forget, 17th.
Don't forget. Okay. So
it's on your flyer.
So is there a point where time runs out before the 17th, and you then have the option of adjusting what you
can adjust it throughout. So you can adjust it up until we turn off the application form with I forget exactly what time we do it. I think it's 5 p.m. Eastern. Until 5 p.m. Eastern, you can adjust and edit and play with it.
Okay.
Well, thanks everybody. I really was sort of humbled by the CVs that you guys bring to the table and all the projects and good work you all have done, especially hanging out here until 5:30 on a Friday. Dan, do you want to, or Chris, or Sonia? Thanks a lot. I'm really excited. I mean, I really hope, one, that this helps spark some idea that you'll share on the site. Two, if it doesn't, I hope, especially given your guys' backgrounds and day jobs, that you'll come onto the site, register. It's an easy registration. You can connect it to your Facebook account if you want, and that you'll comment and critique and support or hate the projects that you see if you don't share your own. And thanks for coming.